Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I will review a book which I recently read. It is Colaba. You can see it. It's by Shabnam Minwalla. Shabnam is a long-time resident of Colaba. She's like an insider, and she's written this book, which is not very thick. It gives you a story about Colaba. So, if you happen to Bombay or Mumbai, or if you live there, then this book would be very interesting. I believe that often we don't pay attention to the area in which we live in. We have this urge to travel to distant places, but sometimes traveling close to where you are, deep diving into the place where you live, knowing its history, its geography, its architecture, its flora and fauna can be very rewarding. So I welcome such books. So let's talk about this book straight away. So Bombay, as we know it today, or Mumbai, was actually a collection of islands, and first it came into prominence when Portuguese, who were in India before Britishers, they had these group of islands which are now present day Mumbai. So at that time they were like seven islands. So uh, as a wedding dowry for Charles II of Britain, Portuguese gave the dowry. So Portuguese Princess Catherine was married to Charles II, and Portuguese, in their wisdom, decided to give Bombay, or as it was called then, in dowry to Britishers. So in 1663-64, so that was a time in India when British East India Company had just come in and they were trying to find their way across India. Portuguese were already established. They were a bigger entity than Britishers. So that is how the story begins. These were like seven separate islands, and they were separated by shallow waterways. So it was not like very deep water, and they were not like typical islands, but they were separated by water bodies. So there was Worli, there was Mahim, present day Colaba, Mazagon, Parel. So all these were islands separated, and nothing much was happening. Right, the action was elsewhere. These were the days of Mughal Empire. Uh, uh, Also, in this area, nearby area, Gujarat and other parts of Maharashtra had more prominence. So Marathas were fighting, rebelling against Mughals in other parts of Maharashtra, but this area, which we call Mumbai, was largely ignored. It had really very blessed existence, nothing happening there. So this continued. So Colaba was one of the islands. So the Colaba gets its name from Colis. Coli fishermen were one of the early inhabitants of this area. And Colaba, by the way, is a natural harbor, and we'll come to that later on. So it became Koli Bhat, which is Koli Estates, and Koli Bhat got corrupted to Kolaba. That's how it got the name. So Kolaba was one of the islands, and the Britishers took over. Nothing was happening, but yes, the flow of history in the next 100 years meant that East India Company got established in India, and Portuguese were almost driven out. They had a few strangleholds. So now, cut to like 100 years later, in 1750 to 1800, that's a time when Britishers started realizing that Bombay could be a harbor, and since they were here for the long run, they thought, so they started looking at Bombay a little more carefully. So it happened that the islands were still separate. So these were all like six, seven islands. So they were still not connected. But some work had started in terms of connecting these islands. So now 1800 is come. Colaba is largely deserted. There's nothing much happening. Very few people there. There was some bit of army personnel deployed there, but nothing much happening. So the first big thing that happens, which really changed changed everything for Colaba, was Colaba Causeway. So even today, you have a market which is called Colaba Causeway. Essentially, causeway is a path which connects two distinct islands over a water body. So before this causeway came up, people could walk across to other islands because the water was very shallow, or if it was high tide, they could take a boat. But causeway changed everything. So now Colaba became connected to rest of Bombay, and suddenly everything changed. So real estate prices went up. There were a lot more shops that were set up. Lot more people coming to live here. A lot of development happening. Parsis had come to Bombay at that time, and they were looking at this area. So this is like, suddenly Colaba took off. It became a favorite for serving British officers for a number of reasons. Parsis were living here, and there were people from other parts of India, because soon Bombay became an urban center around 1800 to 1900, when industrialization was taking place in India also. Bombay emerged as one of the hubs of urbanization and industrialization in India. So things really changed around that time, and Colaba, because of Colaba Causeway, which got built in 1838, became like connected to the rest of Bombay, and suddenly it took off. Development happened, lots of people came over, and things started happening. Uh, in 1865, they constructed Flora Fountain there. So this book has got lots and lots of stories of that time. Okay, let me just show you this map of Bombay when Britishers took over. So you can see that these are two different maps, and you can see the distinct islands. Anyway, there are lots of interesting stories of Colaba, in the book. You will discover lots and lots of interesting trivia. Colaba technically, not in Colaba, but on the border of Colaba, was the best hotel in Bombay at that time, called Watson's Hotel, which was owned by James Watson, a Britisher. This was before the construction of Taj Mahal at Colaba. So I'll come to that also, Taj Mahal story. So Mark Twain, when he was traveling around the world in 1894, had stayed at Watson Hotel, and he wrote a few passages about his stay in Watson Hotel. So Watson Hotel was actually built with prefabricated cast iron structures, which were shipped from England, and it was a unique structure. It was essentially a hotel where Britishers socialized. It was the best hotel in Bombay at that time. And Jamshed Tata, who was the founder of Tata Group, had one of his visions. So four things that he was kind of thinking of as big aims of his life. One was setting up cotton mill in Bombay, which he did. Second was setting up iron and steel company in India for the first time, which is what happened later on at Jamshedpur. Third was creating a hydroelectric project, which happened after he had passed away. His son Dorabji did that near Pune. And the fourth was building a world-class hotel in Bombay, and which is what he did during his lifetime. So Taj Mahal Hotel opened sometime in 1904. Literally the gold standard of hotels in India at that time. The first hotel in India to have like so many firsts, like air-cooled rooms, chandeliers, lots and lots of things. So yeah, and Colaba has not looked back after that. Today, Colaba is a part of Tony's South Bombay crowd. It has got a yacht club, which emerged out of Watson Hotel, Gateway of India, lots and lots of landmarks, art and culture near Kala Ghoda area. So yeah, lots of things. And yes, I must end with an anecdote, which people who love music, Led Zeppelin, they were staying in Taj Hotel in 1972. So they went out, and they went to a pub, local pub, and they wanted to enter, and the guy there stopped them. They said, "Who are you?" So somebody, a local guy who was, his name is Yusuf Gandhi, he recognized these two guys. They were part of Led Zeppelin, and the disc, it was called Slip Disc, that pub. And Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin group were allowed entry, and then they were given a bottle of scotch to drink. And for that bottle of scotch, they performed for an audience there, and it was back in 1972. So interesting Colaba story. And today Colaba, we all know, it's literally the poshest part of Mumbai, because Bombay has become Mumbai. I love this book. I enjoyed it a lot, and I would recommend people to read it. I mean, it's really interesting book. Um, I wish we have more such books about our cities and our localities. It's important to understand our heritage and our history and where we have come from. It makes for more engaged citizens of the country. So yeah, and thank you very much for watching my channel. My intention is to bring a lot of India specific content in books and book reviews on YouTube, because that is one lacuna I found, because I'm a book lover. I read a lot, I go to a lot of bookstores, and I find that as Indians do not really talk much about books on YouTube. So I'm trying to rectify it. And yeah, if there's any comment, I would love to see your comment. Thank you very much. And this book is priced at 499 rupees. Definitely worth it. Please buy it and read it. Thank you very much.